Do people tolerate you or do they celebrate you? Hey, I'm Dr. Lori Sulpizio, and today's talk is going to be kind of a simple one. There's no big complicated theory, there's no big empirical research or body of literature that we're going to dig into. It's simply you connecting to you and thinking about how others engage with and relate to you. I spent a lot of time talking about how important it is for us to think about our own thoughts and feelings, but in this video, we're going to shift the focus to the thoughts and feelings of others. I want you to think about how others actually relate to you. So then why do we care? Why is this important? I mean, it's true that in my video on confidence, the number one barrier to confidence is caring what other people think. So why am I telling you now to consider what other people think? Well, it turns out that there's a sweet spot around caring what other people think and not. And it's actually really about being selective about whose opinion you care about. There are those people whose thoughts and opinions matter, and there are those who don't. The other thing is this: there's a lot of self-awareness to be learned by recognizing, acknowledging, and admitting how other people view and perceive you.
What? I don't think you're gorgeous.
You think I'm gorgeous?
So there's several ways to begin discovering this about yourself. The first is to think about, how often do people include you? Do people seem excited to have you as part of something? Do you find yourself surrounded by people inviting you to places and wanting to be in your company? As you're listening to this, I want you to consider how you want to be, the kind of person you want to be, and how you want to be known. We're all contagious in terms of our energy and our attitude. So what do you want to infect people with? I was listening to some kids talk about their teachers and some of their coaches. They weren't doing it in a snarky way that the kids often talk about the adults in their lives. It was real and genuine. And it made me sad for these adults because these kids were talking about how the teachers were so moody. And their hypothesis was that they just must not be very happy in their personal life. One kid told the other kid, "Don't worry about that, coach. All they do is yell." And then a few days later, I was listening to a group of colleagues talk about their manager, and it wasn't pleasant things being said. So what happens when you are a person that people don't connect with or resonate with?
It means I can't stand you being here.
Well, then people just dismiss you. They learn not to listen to your comments or your ideas, and they learn to tune you out. You can imagine if you're a person whose job it is to work with others, this would be problematic. If you're a person in a leadership role or somebody who wants to do leadership, helping people address tough problems and move people forward, this requires a good relationship, and so you want people to want to be around you and appreciate your way. If you're a parent, you want your kids to connect with you, and you want them to trust you and know they can come to you for support. If they think you're always yelling, dismissing them, if they don't appreciate who you are and how you are, it's going to be problematic. So on one hand, you might say, I don't care what people think about me. And you might say to yourself, these are people that have their own issues, and they're projecting all of those issues onto me. You know, maybe that's somewhat true, but I think the important thing here is for us to begin to take a deep look at ourselves and to attempt to get honest with ourselves, because it's often too easy to put things on others that really should be our own work to do. What we're talking about here is a form of feedback. And I know feedback is really difficult. It's difficult if someone gives you feedback directly, and it's difficult to sit down and take it in based on looking at your own experience with others and your experience in the world. So I know what I'm asking you to do isn't easy. I want to reiterate that there are definitely some people's thoughts and opinions of you that you don't want to hold on to, but I'm not talking about individual people who are toxic in your life or the individual people who have an agenda in the way they react and interact with you. I'm talking about a more broad-based perspective, a global perspective of just how you are perceived in the world. There's a general self-awareness part of this as well, because when we're aware of the energy that we bring into the room and the energy that we give to a room or take from a room, then we're living with more focus and consciousness. And I'll tell you, in every single workshop that I do, every time I work with groups, whether it's intact teams in an organization, kids in middle school, Division I athletes, the biggest complaint that all those groups have when they talk about others in their lives, especially their managers, their leaders, their parents, is that those people are clueless about themselves. They have no self-awareness. And here's the thing, we give a lot of latitude and grace to people who are aware of themselves and can embrace the parts of themselves that maybe aren't the best, because we all have those parts to ourselves. So admitting those parts, being willing to develop those parts, not dismissing or denying those parts, that's the measure of self-awareness. You might know people who have no self-awareness, and they're just clueless about their impact on others and their impact on the room when they come into one. They may suck up all the energy because they take up all the space. They may get angry at the drop of the hat. These people are not fun to be around. Okay, so one quick and easy way for you to consider how others might perceive you and think about you is to ask yourself, how are you memorable? How would people talk about you once you leave the room? When people know you're coming to an event or a party or a meeting, what do they say? How do they feel about it? So I can give you a personal example. I've been told that I can be intimidating. I've gotten a lot of feedback that I can take over a conversation that I push really hard. And in many ways, I know that's true, and it's often been a good thing, and it's served me well. Well, maybe not the intimidating part, but let's start there. I'm relatively tall, I've got more of a masculine presentation in the way that I look and act, a low voice, and I can sometimes be guarded and standoffish. Now, I could go on and share with you all about my experience as a lesbian in the late 80s and early 90s when I was a teenager and how difficult that was, and how I felt like I had to develop a protective bubble around myself in order to keep myself safe from the homophobia, the prejudice, the discrimination, and that was why I was a little standoffish and I was a little distant from people because I didn't know who I could trust. And that's a pretty legitimate justification for those behaviors, but the fact of the matter is that being distant and standoffish isn't a good thing. So yeah, I really do have some legitimate reasons for why I am the way I am, but we can't use our problematic, troublesome, or difficult past as an excuse for bad behavior. Okay, I want to say that again because I think it's critical. We cannot use our troublesome, problematic, or difficult past as an excuse for bad behavior. We know now that we can do the work of healing past wounds, and we can confront some of our monsters and our demons, and we can figure out the places that we need to be better. Like take my voice, for example. I have a low, deep voice, and I talk very fast. So often, if I'm in a heated conversation, especially with my partner, she'll comment on my tone. And I'll say, I don't have a tone, that's just my voice. And both things are actually true. It is just my voice, but I also need to be attentive to the fact that just my voice can come across as harsh. Once you know something about yourself, it's up to you to do something about it. I think this is probably one of the reasons why so many people don't develop their self-awareness, because once you do it, you then have a responsibility to yourself and those people in your life to be better, to fix the things that are your blind spots and fix the things that show up as negatives when dealing with others. And here's another thing, when I take over conversations and push really hard, it's usually around issues of social justice that I care very passionately about. But even though the issue is an important one, and my point's often a good one, delivering it in a pushy and dominating way is not useful or helpful to moving an issue forward. So there's parts of me that I have to work a little extra hard on and be more intentional and conscious about, so I don't come across as intimidating or standoffish or too direct or too forceful. Because, well, I appreciate those parts of myself. They've served me in many ways, but I don't want that to be the way that I'm known. So one thing to think about for you is, how do you want to be known? Do you want to be a person that people think of as kind, one who brings joyful, positive energy into the room? Or maybe you're the person that helps the room find their calm and you just have a peaceful effect on people. As we start to think about how we want to be, then we can figure out what actions and behaviors we need to bring to the room in order to have that particular effect on those around us. The cool thing is knowing that now gives me a chance to work on it. So here's the activity. Get a pen and a paper, get your journal, and I want you to first think about what you're known for. How would people describe you? What makes you memorable? How would your colleagues describe you? Your close friends, your family? Would two different groups describe you differently? It's not a bad thing, because we often do show up differently in different roles and different spaces. But hopefully, there's some consistently positive aspects about you. Here's a funny but real question you could ask yourself is, would you date yourself? Would you want to hang out with yourself? Are you good company, and would you want to go out to lunch with yourself? We're constantly negotiating the boundaries between our own authenticity and sense of individuality and the fact that we live in connection with others. So where do I end and where does my relationship with the world begin? And there's no one answer to that. So as you dig into this, I want to tell you that I don't think it's good to be people-pleasing or overly compliant. So there's certainly a fine line here, and I've got videos on boundaries and taking up your space that are really important to watch if you might be a person who leans on the side of being a people-pleaser. However, our lives are built and defined by connection. We are all in relationship with others. If you are in any kind of an organization and you work with other people, or if you want to do leadership in any way, you're going to be relating to others and they're going to be relating back to you. So I'm encouraging you and inviting you to think about, what are those engagements like? How do people receive you? How do they think about you? Are you simply tolerated? Or when you come into the room, do people feel happy to connect with you, ready to hear what you have to say, and just genuinely feel joy around you? I mean, here's the other thing. We all have bad days, so I'm not sitting here telling you that you have to be perfect all the time, or that you have to always be in a great, happy, calming, positive space. That's not it. But again, we're getting up onto the balcony and looking down at ourselves, kind of macro scale, getting a global perspective. Overall, are you a positive person? Are you a kind person? Are you a person that expresses gratitude? Are you a fill in the positive adjective blank person? That's what we strive for. We want to be a person that can create deep and meaningful relationships because we can connect deeply and meaningfully with others. Thanks so much for being with me. I know your time is super valuable, so I appreciate you would spend it with me. Dig into some of these questions, explore your self-awareness from this perspective, and I'll see you in the next video.